Thanks for joining us today for this community lightning discussion related to support, which I work in on a daily basis, as well as all the people on this great presentation. With us, we have Jason from the University of California, San Diego, Paul from UMass Amherst, Mark from Kent State University, Amanda from Neomed, and then myself and Nancy too from Kuali. They'll do a little bit more introductions before their session and before they get into their segment. But a little bit of housekeeping before we get started, and this is true of any of the presentations here in Kuali Days this week. Slides will be uploaded to the Socio platform as well as the recording, so you can access those later. And if you could rate the session after we're done in the Socio platform, that would be fantastic. Please feel free to put in questions in the chat, and we'll be monitoring those. And we'll also, if you have questions, you can pipe up too, and we should have enough time at the end to address any questions too. All right, so let me introduce myself as well as Nancy. So we are the support team for Kuali Research. You may have interacted with us through the support portal. So we manage all the support tickets and kind of give help and assistance when needed. We also manage the support documentation or the system documentation in the support portal. I'm the director of customer support specifically for research, and Nancy's our customer support specialist. And so yeah, we're here to help in any way we can when you have issues. Now, a little overview on what our support looks like. The main focus I want definitely to be on kind of tier 1 support at the local institution. So my area of this is going to be pretty brief, and then I'll hand it over to my colleagues at the institutions to talk about how they handle support locally at their schools. So for Kuali in general, we support 50+ customers for Kuali Research. We do use Zendesk as our tool for both our support tickets as well as all our knowledge base. So I put a link there to our overall support portal, which I hope you're familiar with and use on a regular basis, but has all our documentation, our community forums for user groups, and then also the ability to submit support tickets for the 3 designated reps per institution. As far as volume, we do average about 170 tickets per month, but as we're increasing the number of customers that go live throughout the year, that's slowly gone up. And as I mentioned, we're a team of 2 currently, so we have 2 FTE. So that's how Kuali in general provides support, but I'm gonna hand it over to Jason, and he'll talk about his process.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jason DeFay, and I'm the Director of Electronic Research Administration at UC San Diego. I recently actually transitioned to Central IT. We've reorganized as times have changed, and now I'm part of Central IT instead of part of our Vice Chancellor for Research or Vice President for Research, depending on the kinds of names that you have in your different organizations. So just some reshuffling of the organization. So just a quick overview of UC San Diego. We are a large decentralized research school. We have a medical center. We are a former COEUS school. As of January of last year, we went live with Kuali Research. And currently, as of today, we're using all the modules in Kuali. We're a SaaS customer, but we use conflict of interest. Currently, we're using Build, Kuali Build, and we are going to be launching protocols in the summer of this year. When I said large and decentralized, that means we have lots of different sponsored projects offices, compliance offices, and things like that. And they're spread across multiple organizational areas within the campus, and that makes it sometimes challenging to coordinate services across different areas, and so those kinds of things as you would expect in a large decentralized organization. IT, however, as I was just mentioning, is centralized. So that's been, well, I should say, enterprise IT largely has been centralized. We still have some decentralized units that do client support and those kinds of things for like end user computers and those types of things out in the various areas. But since we're pretty much all web-based and the enterprise services themselves have been centralized, that does make it somewhat easier for us to work with our customers and resolve their issues. So let's see, we different compliance offices, like most of you have, maybe some different ones in that we have diving, for example, and that kind of thing. And then different in the sense that our conflict of interest office, business office, uses the Kuali conflict of interest module, and human subjects is going to be using the protocols module soon. So that kind of changes as well the dynamic of just kind of client support requests and those types of things. So the numbers, we have 35,000 or so employees, about 2,900 faculty. A good chunk of those are clinical. Approximately 1,100, 1,200 or so regular Kuali research users. That just includes support staff and approvers. It doesn't include like PIs and people who can just kind of log in and create records, or who might casually certify a record they're participating in, or that kind of thing. So there's more people that are touching the system, creating COI disclosures and so forth. But in terms of our typical end user population that we're directly supporting day to day, it's about 1,200. Let's see, we didn't break it down by the counts by month. It's hard sometimes. I mean, we've been live now just over a year. So we had a lot of calls and support requests early on. And then, of course, as you might expect, that diminished over time. But since our go live just over a year ago, we have about 5,290 support requests. We use ServiceNow to support our customers. They can also just send emails in, but it converts it to a ServiceNow ticket. And that way we have traceability and can track them and close them and all of that kind of thing. In ServiceNow, it's kind of nice. We also use it to handle our access requests. So if folks want to become a research administrator in a department, or they're a new hire transferring departments, they want to move access or change their access around, we have a process for doing that in ServiceNow that then actually, once it's approved by our department approvers in those units, then it automatically provisions the group member via like an API. So that's kind of convenient. We also have real-time chat in ServiceNow. So that's fairly well utilized. It seems like a fair number of chat requests come in and are managed via the tier 1 client support team. And when I say tier 1, you know, everybody has their tier 1, everybody has their tier 2 and their tier 3, I suppose. So our tier 1, unlike we are tier 1, I guess we're one of the customers for Jessica's tier 1 team, or we're considered, I guess, your tier 1. My tier 1s are going to be actually in the contracts and grants office and the conflict of interest office. We have our sort of business users who are our primary support folks, and that's really what in our support universe we call our tier 1. I'm really more considered tier 2, in that they would handle, typically those things are business questions. Hey, why do I have to do something versus how do I do something, or I can't do something and I need help. And so our tier 1 folks in the business offices would escalate those cases to us in ServiceNow. And then we have a queue, we work through those queues, we try to resolve whatever we can. And if we can't resolve it, then we escalate it up to the next tier. That tier could be Jessica's team in Kuali, or it could be another team within our enterprise IT group. If, for example, you know, we needed to engage assistance from one of our integration engineers, or some other team internally. We also use WalkMe, which is a digital adoption platform. It's embedded into Kuali. A lot of large companies use it. You'll see it oftentimes in financial software, banks. You know, go to your bank website, something new will pop up saying, hey, look, you've got something new that's an option here, that kind of thing. And that can be very helpful for assisting with users to kind of help them understand when changes are introduced, what to do next, which options to choose. We've even used it to actually allow users to create proposals, for example. So if they want to create a proposal, they can click the Walk Me button, and it'll sort of start the shell for them. So that kind of helps them through the UI to help assist them with the process. So a bit about the support experience. We have a customer support portal, which looks all fancy with the nice pictures and big flashy icons on a lot of open space, and a big search box in the center. So users can kind of basically type in what they're looking for. And then we kind of break things down into knowledge-based things, find answers, searching the kind of the KBs or knowledge bases to look for things. They can order services. They can look at their tickets that they've submitted. So you can see here, this is kind of what it looks like. There's an agent view as well, which isn't nearly as pretty. It's much more functional, and I'll show you that in a minute. But once as a user or as an end user, you're looking for help, you submit your support requests. You'll see a list of things that you have submitted with the status of it, and you can look at closed ones, active ones, and kind of look at those details. Once you're submitting a ticket, when you start entering in the information, it searches the knowledge base articles to kind of show you if you can find matches, and that's helpful because we want a speed resolution, and if there's the frequently asked question, we have a knowledge base article for it, then that obviously can help get their answer quickly. So there was a question. I'll go ahead and just jump over to that.
Okay.
Yeah, WalkMe question prior to Kuali Go Live. Were we using it prior to Go Live January 2020? No, we started using them at the same time. We've subsequently started using WalkMe for all sorts of different things, our payroll system, financial system, travel reimbursements, you name it. So we had actually implemented WalkMe, or thought of implementing WalkMe originally as part of Kuali only, but it became so popular, and because of licensing, it ended up being much more cost effective to just get a site-wide license, negotiate that with WalkMe, and use it in any application basically that we want at that point. So it's been really cool, actually. It's been a good thing. Okay, how am I doing on time, Jessica?
I think you're all right.
Okay. So dashboards and metrics. A lot of people, they submit their support requests, and then they want to see, how that stacks up over time. We have just a smattering here of things. I just showed like a word cloud, a monthly word cloud of ticket tasks or words that are appearing. So of course this changes based on whatever the topics of the day, month, or period are. But we also have it sliced and diced by, assignment groups and volume over time, tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 breakdowns, all those kinds of things. So I thought it might be useful just to give you a quick overview of that. I did not create this dashboard. This is actually created by our business office in ServiceNow, and they use it to really monitor proactively, what's going on and who's assigned what tickets, and kind of manage volume, see what kind of common things are happening, support requests and so forth, so they can try to get ahead of those with training and that type of thing. So this is just a quick summary of like all of the support services, requests, conflict of interest, research, and other kinds of terms and things that are of interest to the managers. And basically a lot of the stuff is mostly management focused, but it's interesting and illustrative, I think. So you can see Kuali Research by far has the largest spread of items here that are coming in. We have it broken down by assignment groups as well. So which group and team has been handling these things. We also have service level agreements, although I don't think that we're currently using our service level agreements functionality because we haven't really decided what the right service level agreements would be for sort of a broad-based decentralized research organization. So you'd have to, of course, get everyone to agree on what the service levels should be before you can really measure the service level agreement response rates. So it's interesting information, but it doesn't necessarily drive anything at this time. Though I imagine as we move forward, at some point we might get some agreement around service metrics, time to response, time to close on tickets and that kind of thing. Here's an interesting one. Just shows us all tiers. And again, the tiers are important to know, again, which tier you're looking at, because it's all relative to what tier you're standing in and where you are. So this kind of gives you a quick view of tasks created over time. You can see spikes around the times that we go live with new systems. For example, here we went live with a new payroll system. So we know that would expect to see a spike in support requests that were created across the tiers. So you can see when we went live, January, and you can see a big spike there, started to diminish, launched a new system, started to diminish and that kind of thing. So you can start to see the patterns there, which is useful. This is the chat utilization is interesting. You can see how many chats were created early on and kind of where we're at with utilization of the chat feature for this service line, which is the Kuali and research support service line. Here's that word cloud, the current word cloud. I think this is just a copy of the same one, but it might be rolling. So this is the current view of that. So it changes, I think, every month, but you get a sense of that. Cases by priority as well. So we track the assignment of priority and urgency, so that way we can get a sense of who's got the most urgent tickets and how are we doing there. Let's see, what other interesting tidbits can I show you? I know I got a lot more here. I don't want to I can click through more, and I can actually as well hang out at the end and we can go into more detail on some of these things. So I just wanted to just show you kind of the high level metrics that we've got here: tier 1, tier 2, in this case, tier 2 tech, that's my tier, and then the business tiers. So they have their metrics, that kind of thing. Conflict of interest is unique. The way they handle things is a little different. So they have like automatic ticket creation whenever anybody sends an email in, which is why this spike's so high. So you get a lot of email volume being tracked in here in this particular case. General inquiries, that kind of thing. We also are tracking report requests for BI reports for folks who are wanting to get help with analytics and that type of thing. We provide that as a service as well, so that's tracked here as well. Subawards and that kind of thing, and miscellaneous agreements. We have some sort of different metrics for those folks. And then we also were using Build as an interesting use case. We're using Build for our COVID closures and prioritizing folks in terms of who's coming to campus. So we created a quick build form and then started tracking requests for, hey, who needs to stay open, who needs to come, who needs to go, who's in the lab, what's urgent, what's critical, that kind of thing. So for our COVID lab response in terms of coordinating that activity, get some metrics here on that. Although it'd be interesting to see now how things are turning around as we come back to work. So that's what I wanted to show you there. And I will stick around if there's additional questions about specific metrics or other things. So with that, I'm going to take it over here to Paul.
Hey, everybody. Paul Kelly, University of Mass Amherst. I just wanted to thank Jason. That was a good presentation. We're similar to San Diego in the use of some of the tools, but we're different too. For example, we're decentralized from IT, so we're under research and engagement. So we formed a specific IT area under research probably 5 years ago or so, and really the reason was just to be able to focus on research type system related issues. At that time, we just didn't find that the centralized IT, we were the highest priority. So I think it's really worked out pretty well for us. We went live with Kuali back in July of 2019. You can see that we used all the modules, proposal development, institutional proposal, awards, protocols, and our last one we started with was Kuali Build. What I'm going to show you a little bit is just some screens as we're using Kuali Build with API integrations to our HR data, to our routing data that's coming from our Kuali data. So we're using a lot of the things that we're loading each day. We're using it in Build, and I'll show you a couple of examples as we go. Just a little bit about our numbers. Every day we're loading approximately 43,000 records of faculty, staff, students into HR. We also turn around and load that into Kuali HR. We also load that into Kuali Build so that we can use all the person data and for our forms that we use for Kuali Build. We also load students. That was a really important load for us because of the fact that in protocol, students are used a lot more, obviously, and we have an easy pick for the faculty and users of Kuali because our students are already there. We've done about 4,000 tickets internally since go live. What we do is not all tickets will get to Kuali, obviously. We have Brad Cohen, who's about 50% FTE on just managing the tickets. His other 50% is managing the Kuali Build development, and he works on support of that as well. We have Paul Brozick, who works with he really is our connection to our central IT related to server configurations, server connections with Kuali, all our database work with Kuali, all of our Tableau data analytics development. So we have a lot of similar things that Jason has, except we use Tableau. Our goal was to really do what Jason did and use ServiceNow as the main support portal. But we found some limitations with what we have for ServiceNow in terms of building the front ends of our ticketing. So Jason, you go to the next slide. So this is just an example of our website where our users will come in and you can see we just have a link to our Kuali systems. We also have a link to the R&D help desk. So that's the next page, Jason. So what our user will do is just click our R&D help desk, and here's where the Kuali build comes in. If you flip over the next page, Jason. So when they click that, they come into Kuali build. And in Kuali build, what we have, I mentioned we loaded all of our 43,000 HR. So the form submitted by, you have to be an active person, and it's a select from that list. So you can start typing Kelly, and you have to be an active HR person to submit a form. So if you're not, you can't submit a form. And this way we know exactly who's submitting the form, what department they're in. So we get a lot of great data out of this through Kuali build. You can just see the flexibility that we're offered when we are working with Kuali build and the questions we wanted to ask about the problems or issues that our users are having. So we broke it down. I'm not going to go into all the details of each of those buckets, but if Jason, you go to the next one, this is just a general question that we might ask, like what's your Kuali record? Give us a brief description. Do you have attachments? So all these really cool things that Kuali build can do and make it really simple for us. And I know ServiceNow has similar functionality, but we just found with our API integrations and our ability to do things in really crafting it for the user, make it nice and easy for them. I mean, that's really our focus, not to make it too difficult, not to make it clumsy. And we think that Kuali build does that for us. So a user will submit a ticket, and what they do is get an email. And this now you can see is the beginning of ServiceNow. So once that is submitted, we're submitting from when they click submit in Kuali build, it goes right into ServiceNow. And Brad will sit there. I don't even think Brad joined us today because he's doing another session. But Brad has a inbox that he sees everything coming in, and he'll watch it every day, and he'll see the tickets come in and he'll respond. So if you go to the next one, Jason. So Brad will work in ServiceNow. This is an example of a ServiceNow kind of a dialogue screen that both the user and Brad and myself have access to. So we can communicate back and forth. This is ServiceNow. It will send an email, but you can also work right in our ServiceNow system. Another example screen, if you go to the next one, is just, this is, the customers don't see this screen. This is something that Brad and I and Paul Brozic work with. You can see I just put an example of how we close a ticket out in ServiceNow. And once we close it, the system will generate, go ahead to the next one. It'll send out an email about a survey. So we will then, the customer will get the next screen and they can tell us how we did. And we do analytics. We not to the level that Jason does them, but we do keep really close counts on number of tickets, the categories, how things are going, if there's spikes. We've been pretty consistent over the year and a half that we've been live in terms of numbers. I think the issues just get different as you start to get into the details of the system. So it's been a really, I think we've been really successful with the integrations of Kuali build and ServiceNow to be able to have tools for our customers that are nice and clean and nice and easy to use, and using the Kuali build product really helped us out. So thank you for that, Kuali. And I think that was my presentation, and we can move on to the next.
Okay, hello everyone. My name is Mark van het Hoofd. So what we do at Kent State is very, very different from San Diego and UMass. As you can see from our demographics, we are a lot smaller. We are very spread out. We have a main campus and then 7 satellite campuses. And as far as our faculty goes, we have about 2,700 full and part-time faculty and 3,000 staff. Now, these are not all active Kuali users. I would say as far as users go, we're looking at, in the hundreds. Proposal activity for us is also, it's like 1/10 of what San Diego does, if you remember the numbers that Jason showed. And we receive about 300 award increments every year. So we are comparatively smaller, but we have a wide variety of activity. And so I've just listed a couple of examples there of things that we do, things that we're known for. And so that just kind of gives you an idea of our institution. As far as our research administration goes, we are very centralized. And we can do that because of the size of our institution and the size of our proposal and award activity. So we have a division of research with a sponsored programs office that contains 8 staff, and I'm one of them. We have a very small compliance office, and then we have some other areas that are really mainly offices with 1 person. So for student research, tech transfer, and faculty development, but we all make up division of research. Then we do have some other support areas for proposals and grants. It includes the grants accounting office. They're in a separate division. And then we do have, in a few colleges and departments, we have some departmental and college level support, but that depends on their activity and their budget. So for example, we have a grants person in the College of Arts and Sciences. We have a grants coordinator in biology, and then we have one in psychological sciences. And that's just because there's a very high level of activity there. Then as far as support goes for Kuali itself, so we don't have any fancy IT support systems set up. We use mostly Dev IP and Award. And then we are in the process of implementing a part of protocols. I'm not sure yet when that's going to happen. It's been kind of been discussed and tested for a few years now. And I think there's finally some movement on that. We migrated from COIAS to Kuali in July of 2016. I think we were, in Jessica, I don't know if you know, but I think we were one of the first schools to migrate to Kuali.
I believe so, yeah.
So we've been doing this for a while. Now that said, because of our limited scope, our support is provided mostly by email. So one of the things that we did in Kuali itself, there is and it's configurable through I think it's a parameter. There's a help link in Kuali itself. And so we have configured that to a local email address so that people can contact us from within the system with an issue. We also have that address posted everywhere so that people know what it is and they can contact us. And then those emails are auto forwarded to 3 of us, myself and 2 administrators. And then we basically do some triaging as far as who's going to respond. So we have some, basically we kind of set up some agreements, like if it's a certain type of request, like a addition to an address book or entering a new sponsor, then we have a certain person that does that. If it's more of a technical issue, then usually I'm the one who will take a look at that and either respond or escalate it up. So it just depends on what the issue is or what the request is. And then as you can see, we average a very low number of incidents. That's, I would say we don't really track because to us, it's not really worth the time and the effort, but I'd say maybe 5 issues or 5 requests per week. And it changes. Sometimes we have more, sometimes we have less. I mean, we have sometimes weeks where we don't get any questions or requests. And then, like I said, you know, if it's something that we can't fix or do, then we'll escalate it up as needed, either to our local IT support, if it has something to do, for example, with institutional user account or our HR feed, or if it's a bug in Kuali or something that's Kuali related, then we'll send a Zendesk ticket in, and then either Jessica or Nancy will respond to that. And then finally, we don't, and I know the other 2 schools didn't talk about this, but you know, part of support I think is also training. We used to do some training sessions in person. We would invite people to come in. Those sort of weren't really that successful. We found that just providing some local resources that people can just access as needed, it seems to work a lot better. And so, you know, we've written some support documentation that the link is there on the slide. You're more than welcome to go look at it and download pieces if you think that would be useful for you. But just keep in mind that most of that support documentation is written with, you know, to help with our local configurations. So if you see something you like, you're probably going to have to tweak it to match with what you have. So yeah, so you know, we keep it small, we keep it simple. That works for us. And with that, I'll pass it on to Amanda.
Mark, there was a question on the configuration for email address. Do we want to save that for the end, or we want to dive into that? How are we doing on time?
I think we're doing all right.
Yeah, that is, I believe that is, and I can't remember off the top of my head, but this is a parameter that you can set, and you just plug in whatever the email addresses that you want to use. So we had our IT create like a, I think it's quali-research-help@ken.edu. But if you wanted to go to a specific person, you can do that. So, we have some other emails set up in the system that way. But yeah, we really like the fact that that's an option, that we can actually configure that so that stays local.
Yeah, I put the article link for that parameter, Chris.
Thank you, Jessica.
Sure.
I think this is not, we do not have it set on ours. It's this over here, right, Jessica? And you're on mute.
Yeah, it's a question mark on the link on the left there.
Okay.
And you can put some, like you say, you can put some URL like HTML stuff to either email to or send to a.
Yeah, we direct ours version over to the knowledge base articles here, but we could direct it elsewhere, it sounds like, too.
Yeah, and Marlise said is only available currently for the SP. When we move to the Greyjoy layout across all compliance modules, I believe it'll be available there as well.
So hi, everybody. I'm Amanda Lindsay Sidoti. I'm a director and the ERA manager in the Office of Research and Sponsored Programs at Northeast Ohio Medical University, or NeoMed for short. And so we are a small medical university. I say we have big research goals. We are a hosted customer. We're using the proposal development, including S2S and institutional proposal modules. And we are in the process of implementing our awards module. We went live with Kuali in 2018. Our institution, it was important to us when they were migrating from the PDF packages in grants.gov to Workspace. We wanted a solution that would work for us to do system to system without having to convert our users to something else like Assist, Workspace, things like that. And we are a centralized research office. We oversee proposal and award activity. And then there's some separate components that are under the VP for research that oversee research compliance. We have less than 100 full-time like tenure track faculty, just less than 500 staff, and about 200 active Kuali users. So very different from many of the other schools we've heard from before. Our first tier support, like Kent State, is an email help desk group supported by 3 of our staff, including myself. So it's very personal. We have super speedy response times, usually the day of or within the hour. Sometimes folks who are working with our people will just call us or stop by our offices. We're actually back on campus most of the time now. So although we're socially distanced, that still does happen. So we're very responsive. I would say we have a lot of common issues. So I have my GIF from the IT crowd here. Instead of having, have you tried turning it off and back on again? Ours is that your password is the same as your Neomed password that you use to log in for our other systems, because we utilize the single sign-on capability. But then sometimes our users run into more novel problems. I mean, we might have anything from we need a new unit added with new approvers, or we might be having trouble with, you know, how an S2S form is working. So we see things that are the gamut. And then we also, we would only contact our IT if it was something like a Banner HR integration issue. They've supported that feed for us into Kuali, as well as anything that's going on with the single sign-on. We use Microsoft Active Directory for that. So we really have personal guidance and training. This is Nate the walking whale. We don't have any sports teams, but we have a mascot, and he's actually based on a species that one of our researchers discovered, which I think is pretty cool. But we have one-on-one training and support, often in person, or like whether that be actually in person or virtually. And then we've done some in-person demos for small groups. We migrate those to Zoom as well. But I think, you know, like Mark, a lot of ours is personalized one-on-one or with our training resources that we make available. Next slide, please. So we have user guides and print documentation that we created, not only for research and sponsored program staff, but for users. You know, we're still working on those. We focused at first on the development of some quick guides, which are for things that, you know, our faculty and staff might have to do more often. For our PIs, we have a set of tasks that we ask them to do in proposal development for each proposal that we're submitting. And so we have a document that walks them through that. And then we also have some video demos. And so I think next I have, you know, showing just some of our things. I made an intro to the new Kuali research dashboard when we rolled that out, about a 12-minute long video showing you how to navigate. We have a proposal approval quick guide, not only for our departmental and college approvers, but for our compliance approvers. And then we have the proposal task for PIs that I mentioned. And then internally, you know, I've got my documentation for our staff about, you know, how to set up a people flow, how to set up an agenda for when we need a new routing map. Because those things don't happen very often, I have to refer to those myself because they're just, you know, to remind you the steps that you're going through to create those things. And then we have items like checklists for proposal development, for our IP records, institutional proposal, for when we're reviewing those records to make sure that we have all the data that we would like in each record.
Great. I think we actually had a great question from Chris. Might be a good starting point too for some of our questions about what would be the most common help desk request or issue or question you guys get or receive. And I think, Jason, you mentioned subaward invoicing issues. I think you recently rolled that out.
Yeah, we had a recent rollout of subawards, and we're using the subaward functionality actually to generate invoices and send out payments in our financial system. So we get a lot of questions around that and support requests, particularly around requisitioners. You know, the person who's been named as the requisitioner in the subaward has to approve it, but we get issues where people leave and then that it's stuck waiting for that person to approve it. They can't see it. They don't know who they're, you know, it's definitely something where it requires, you know, back-end queries and things like that to figure out document IDs because they aren't exposed in the UI. So it's just a lot of hand-holding around subawards right now. And I know that Kuali is going to be spending some time beefing up the functionality there. So we're eagerly looking forward to that. But it's not just the Kuali functionality, it's also just you know, the nature of the integrations and having it tied directly into our payment system and having very specific procedures that our Kuali users or our users need to follow in Kuali in order to trigger those things, and them getting comfortable with that, understanding, you know, hey, I'm looking at something in the financial system. Why didn't the payment go out? And what did I do wrong? And all that kind of fun stuff. So
Our support person, Brad, chimed in and he said that most of ours are, I just in general, our highest number would be the data validation errors in S2S and prop dev. I can answer the 24/7 question that just came in. UMass Amherst does not do 24/7. What we do is we follow. So I mentioned we're decentralized from our central IT. So what we follow is what they do. So they end at 5 o'clock Eastern time. So we end at 5 o'clock Eastern time. That's not realistic because we don't really, as research support people, we'll answer emails until 8 o'clock. I mean, just random type things, but we are not 24/7.
So yeah, UCSD, we have 24/7 support desk, but that doesn't really do a whole lot for end users unless there's a major system outage. And then they would call the service owner and service owner would start rallying the team and we would have a major incident. We would probably be getting Kuali on board. It'd be one of those kinds of situations. Fortunately, that doesn't happen, not ever, but it has happened very, very rarely. Other than that, it's just normal business hours for standard support requests.
We are also business hours only, although, you know, you can contact us anytime and we'll help whenever we can.
Yeah, and it's the same for us. And I would say most common questions or issues that we get are usually around access, people that can't log in, that need to have their accounts activated. You know, for PIs, a lot of times it's like they'll need to go in and do something and then they'll email in a panic that they can't edit their record. But it's because they don't hit the edit button. They don't know, they don't read their email, so they don't go look for it. So it's usually like really simple things like that.
At UMass, UMass Amherst, for some reason they give us the last two days in the last month of December off. And because of COVID this year, they gave us 2 extra days. So we were closed. The university was closed the whole last week of December. So we actually closed our service, our support portal, because we didn't want people submitting tickets and us not being there. So we were actually shut down for a week.
Another thing we get, I don't know why, a high volume of access requests for users requesting access for roles they already have. And I'm not sure what's going on there, but it's an unusual situation. So we end up rejecting a lot of these access requests saying, hey, you've already got that. Why are you asking for it? Maybe we just need more training there. It's just it's an interesting oddball fact.
I could see Chris's question and in terms of what Kuali is working on. So Kuali has their own Zendesk. So we submit to them and we can keep track of what the status of that is just by logging into their Zendesk. Jessica can speak more on.
Yeah, so the designated reps, the 3 designated reps can see all the issues for the institution and track them that way and give, provide comments on those if they want to update or have an update or we have an update, we'll pass that along until it's closed.
So we will follow up locally. We for the UMass system, we had this user system. Our tickets are in service now as well as, so you can think about it. A local issue came in, we created in service now, and Brad will look at it and he'll determine if it needs to go to Kuali. Kuali does their thing, they fix it, and then we reach out back to the customer. We'll first say we have reached out to the vendor, and then we'll let them know what the result was once we find out.
So I've got an example here on what we've been doing just to kind of help connect Zendesk to our ServiceNow ticketing system. So, when a customer submits a request through one of the portals, it signs a unique ID. And then I'll take that, usually if it's never going to Kuali, it's never going to have a Zendesk connection to it. But what we'll do is, so it does our dashboard as we're working through these tickets, if it is a Zendesk ticket that we end up submitting, we put that ID in here. So that way it's easy for us to find it over here in this system. So then over here, I've also got our our ServiceNow ticket ID. So then I can go back and forth either way to figure out, okay, who submitted what was this, what's the status, and so on and so forth. And that seems to be been working pretty well, at least on my side. I know, Jessica, for you guys, you probably don't know what these things mean, but that's what the codes are and why we're putting them in there.
Yeah, and if you could put whatever reference you need in there, and that to make it as usable locally. I think it really helps to tie it all together.
Yeah, we're very similar. Brad started putting that information in our tickets as well.
So here's my active queue. One critical, one moderate. All right, anything else?
Oh,
I had a question, if there's time. So it's great seeing just the different varieties of support structures that you guys have shared. I guess it's more maybe for Jason and Paul. So you're gathering lots of metrics, I guess more so Jason, which is awesome. You see all these things bubble up. Can you give an example of something that you were able to spot early because you're gathering these metrics, and it was really, otherwise you wouldn't have gotten ahead of an issue or an issue in general that you wouldn't have, I guess, understood was happening had you not been getting these charts and these stats?
I honestly, since I'm not the one creating this dashboard or using it, it's really for illustrative purposes only. The business folks that are in charge of our client support team created this, and they use it really more for accountability purposes, I think, to talk about, and explain, for example, why it is that there's a perception, for example, that our support requests are taking longer, and it might be because it's like we can quickly go in, and a manager could quickly go in and say, well, why are things taking longer? Well, let's look at our spike right here. We can see that we got 182 tickets in one period that we're trying to work through, and that kind of thing. So I think it's really helpful from that perspective. I mean, a lot of it, the other kinds of things are more real time for us, I think, are just like, hey, anecdotally, I know, or I can tell because I'm kind of dealing with all this stuff all the time, that we've got a spike in, and as I mentioned earlier, our single largest support request area are subaward invoices. And that's actually beginning to prevent us from rolling out new features and supporting new features in Kuali because of those volumes. And so I have factual data that I can use to back that up, but I also can talk to our tier 1 client support person. And it's also nice to be able to log in and see exactly who that person is and how much volume they're getting, and really be able to see who the experts are. I mean, I think, where is she? Her name's Pam, and she has presented before, but here she is. 1,513 tickets handled by Pam as a tier 1 agent, followed by, I mean, less than a third of that for the next, or about a third of that for the next person down, and so forth. So these things are really helpful from a workload balancing, kind of more of a management perspective. But when we were having Pam impacted by all those subaward invoicing issues, I could bring that up to the business leaders who are saying, hey, we want to push a new feature out, and say, well, that's all great, except the client support team isn't going to be able to support you adequately in the new requests that are going to come out, because I can show you the spike that we had last time we rolled out a new feature. We can anticipate that spike is going to happen when we roll out this new feature, and you can see the utilization rate of our help desk resources is at like 110%. So if you're okay with having no support or limited support for your customers, no problem. But if you are concerned about that, or it's something that's going to require a lot of touch and support for the customers, you might want to think about either supplementing your client support team, or redistributing some of the existing workloads, or thinking about other ways to manage that, because then the data is really helpful to make good decisions, hopefully, around the way you staff your client support teams and who's providing those services.
I think from UMass perspective, we would, our goal, and I mentioned this real early, would be to be exactly like Jason in using the analytics. It comes down to who's using it, right? And who wants to see it. So I think for us right now, Jason, if you went to my very last slide in that presentation, right there, exactly. So we have for us to find out if something's like a really particular issue. Of course, somebody will submit a ticket, and we get the sense through the ticket, but we have a rating system after the ticket goes out, so they can tell us, how did we do? How did our support do? Did we answer your question? Did we ignore your question? Was Brad friendly? Was he not? So this tells us a lot, and I think that our management looks at this a lot in terms of what's the satisfaction rate out there for your users. So we rely a lot on this right now this is a ServiceNow survey, so it's an automatic, it's very easy. I don't know if Brad could respond, but we get, if we have 4,000 tickets, maybe we've gotten 2,000 surveys back. I don't know the exact number, but it does give us really good data on where real problems, if we have a real problem that we're either we didn't understand it, or how we resolved it, or is it something we need to really concentrate on moving forward. So that's how we use it right now.
That's very insightful. Thank you both for sharing that.
The other thing that we've done to help speed up resolutions, and I don't know if it's helpful or not, Jessica will probably kill me if I say this, but I'm going to do it anyway, and then you can tell me if it's a bad idea or what have you, is that my tier 1 support team, they know what Zendesk is, and they are registered on Zendesk. And now they're not support ticket creators, but they can receive and monitor support tickets. And so they're interfacing typically with like a departmental person who's having trouble. And so what I'll do in those situations is I'll CC that person on the Zendesk ticket, so that then I can actually close it in ServiceNow and propose the solution and kind of transfer the case between Kuali and the customer, with me monitoring to make sure that there's nothing that's falling apart there. And then they're not waiting on me to play telephone between, like, hey, we fixed it, because typically on these kinds of things, like, we're waiting for Kuali to do a particular fix and to inform the customer, or there's something that Kuali needs them to do directly to change something, and I don't want to be the one in production creating a new record or changing a value or something like that. I'd really much more prefer the end user that's being impacted do that kind of thing, and it seems to speed up the resolutions a fair amount. But I do not generally ever put the end-to-end customer, I guess the tier 0, on those kinds of things, because I don't know that they would really be registered on Zendesk. I don't know that we would want them registered on Zendesk, but they probably wouldn't understand the bigger context of the support process.
I have a question about volume. We are, I'm from University of Cincinnati, and we're going to go live at the end of April with Kuali, coming from COEUS. And I'm curious, the volume of help desk tickets right after you went live, and the kind of, how long it took to start to see a decline on that, and how much of that do you think may have been due to training and getting used to the system, or actual glitches with the system?
Well,
Great question.
I mean, I have the metrics here on the screen. for that period, it was, everybody on deck for a big launch and a big conversion like this. There were a lot of issues that we were fielding across a number of different domains based on the scope of our particular implementation of Kuali, how much data we converted from COEUS, how much training and change management and communications we actually did ahead of time. And when I look at this curve here, and I look at when we rolled out our new payroll system, to me, this actually is, it affirms, I think, something that I feel, which is that this data can show that our rollout of Kuali research, the way we did it, was actually incredibly smooth compared to the way that our colleagues rolled out our payroll system. In terms of its impact specifically in the Kuali ticketing, you can see how it had a much bigger impact. Now, that's not really always fair to say that theirs wasn't necessarily rolled out better or worse or whatever. When the impact, though, to the Kuali environment and support environment in particular, you can see it spiked much greater than what happened when we actually went live with the system. And that just is, it's interesting to think about, like, what will be causing that, and how did that happen? Now, there were some specific reasons too why, integration wise, why when our payroll system changed over, the impacts that we had on our people records in Kuali, there were some impacts there. There was a big spike around requests around that. But that's interesting to see that in your question, it's like when we went live with Kuali, yes, we had issues, but when we went live with other integrated systems, we had even more significant spikes in terms of support requests.
I can't show you a nice chart, but I can say that because we went to Kuali and implemented the systems, we were able to show that our current ticketing system, which wasn't ServiceNow and wasn't Kuali built, was inadequate. So our first 3 or 4 months, we were not in our ServiceNow system. Part of the sell to get us into ServiceNow was, look, we need to be able to manage the intake of these in a professional way, in a logical way, in a systematic way. ServiceNow, in combination with Kuali Build, can do that. In talking to Brad, chatting while Brad's our FTE on the support, he thinks about 6 months or so were just really beginning implementation type. There he is, right there, beginning implementation type questions, and then it kind of turns into more detailed questions. The numbers are really, I think, similar. Brad could help me there if he chats in, but the questions are just different. But the first 6 months were, how do I get in? The next, from then on, it's I'm in a detailed budget, I'm in an S2S. Here's my problem.
All right, kind of a follow-up, I guess, is how many staff members do you have that are actually dedicated to dealing with tickets? I'm kind of a one-woman show. When it comes to our help desk itself, I have a backup for when I'm not in the office, and we've got 2 that are more of the technical side if we need new, routings and things like that fixed. But the day-to-day help desk ticket, I'm kind of on my own. So I was curious what your staff structure looks like.
UMass is, we have 3 in research IT, but only Brad Cohen is focused on the tickets, and he's about 50% of his job is to focus on all of the volumes. Technology helps, so ServiceNow and Kuali Build helps us a lot. So it's 50% for UMass.
Yeah, I just integrated a ServiceNow ticket system like a week ago. So just ahead of going live, I've got that up and running so they can get used to using that.
Yeah, good choice.
Yeah, we've got just those 3 people on the left-hand column there that are handling tickets. That's not their primary, Pam's, that's her primary job, but then we have these other folks who are doing that, and they're doing other things as well. So we've also got a train the trainer kind of approach where, a lot of these end up being business questions. So we're also getting support from, I guess, your tier 0s, which are your business experts in, contracts and grants or compliance, whatever it happens to be, before it gets to our tier 1 support team, and then ultimately to me at tier 2, and then I guess my tier 3 would be Jessica, and so forth.
Hey, Jason makes a good point. We will also, and we need to do this, we'll reach out to the pre-award experts, the post-award experts when we get questions. Brad's can answer, I'd say of the 100% of the question, he could probably answer 75% that come in, just general stuff. But once it gets into really detailed stuff, we just seek the help of our local experts, and we manage that. We don't ever have the user that asked the question, we don't send them off to somebody else. Brad will manage it with the staff and with the person who asked the question, and it seems to work out very well.
So I know we're at time, but we can definitely stick around and continue this great conversation. I think there's been a lot of great questions. It looks like Chris was wondering about, do those support personnel also support other systems besides Kuali Research? It sounds like they do. Yeah.
Yes. Yes, we do. UMass does.
Well, if you have any other questions, I'm sure you could reach out to any one of us by email. Our emails are in the slide deck. Feel free to ask, or if you have other questions for me specifically, you can always submit a support ticket. I really appreciate, thank you everyone for attending, and also our panelists for talking about their support method.
Thanks.
Have a good rest
Thank
of
you.
your Kuali days.
Bye,
Thank
guys.
you.
Thanks, everyone. You guys were really good.